We all know the story. On the eve of Halloween, the soldier rises from the grave. He gallops across the countryside in veils of black and fire, searching for his lost head, with the rapier brandished high to kill anyone who might stand in his way. But is there more to this dark legend of myth and mystery? The legend of Sleepy Hollow is a great Halloween story, and were it not for the great American writer Washington Irving, we would not be able to enjoy this terrifying tale today. Written in 1920, Washington Irving took his inspiration from many stories, and even set the location for the book in a real sleepy little hollow town. In the story, a young man called Ichabod Crane goes to live in the small town to work as a teacher. It is here he learns the heart-stopping tale of the dead man who rises in search of his head. However, conceited and arrogant, he does not believe the story and, well, if you have read the book, then you surely should know what happens next. And if you have not, I shall not be the one to spoil it for you this Halloween. But this is not the only version of the Headless Horseman. Irving himself took inspiration from many different folklore. When he traveled through Europe, he picked up the German language and was quite fascinated by their folk tales, one in particular of the wild huntsmen, who were ghostly riders cursed to roam the earth in an eternal hunt. Now, there are many stories of the huntsmen, and they shift and change depending on the region or person you are speaking to. They can be in a group or alone, good or evil. They are not always decapitated, and they come from all across Germany. While these stories do differ greatly, it is known that the huntsmen are often blamed for high winds and strange noises in the night or forest. One story says the huntsman blows his horn to warn hunters not to go out that particular night, which might explain the high winds. The Brothers Grimm even recorded some of these folk tales, writing down eyewitness accounts of white headless specters chasing down criminals, or angry huntsmen surrounded by hounds with tongues of fire. Enough to give anyone nightmares, especially me. Though they are not always headless, the wild huntsmen are a terrifying sight to behold on any dark night. From the Isles, there is another Headless Horseman, one from Scotland called Duluchan, although not quite as headless as Crane's. His head, which glows in eerie green light, is held firmly underneath his left arm, and in his right hand he holds a whip made from a human spine. We can then definitely say that he wasn't spineless. Sorry. Like the Sleepy Hollow apparition, he too gallops through the hills and downs of the Isles in the dark hours of the night, holding his glowing head high to see the road, or a great distance. When people see him, he throws a bucket of blood on their heads and gallops away, cackling madly, I presume. However, this horseman is in actuality a fairy, a dark, solitary fairy like the Banshee who travelled alone. Now this might seem strange, but most fairies were of large sizes and did not appear in such small forms as we depict them today, and they certainly weren't always benevolent and kind, as proven by the Duluchan. One story tells that he is always galloping or riding across the plains, but when he stops, someone will die. So when you see the Duluchan, be grateful he chucks a bucket of blood on your head instead of spilling yours. Now all these are excellent stories for the campfire, but they are simply a part of stories and folklore. But in Texas, they have another horseman called El Muerto, and he is much different than the others. He's real for a start. In 1830, the American West was a wild and dangerous place, and during that time the Texas Rangers tried to keep some order along the Rio Grande River, which was known as No Man's Land. A man called Vidal was a particular thorn in their side. He stole hundreds of cattle and horses, which was a crime punishable by death. The Texas Rangers finally caught up with the bandit when he tried to steal their prized horses, and with little ceremony they killed him. But the Rangers wanted to make an example of Vidal, and to send a message to all other rustlers. So they cut off his head and hoisted the body up onto the saddle of a wild horse. Tying the hands together, they fastened them to the pommel and tied his legs under the horse to ensure he would stay put. On the side of the saddle they fastened the head, and after everything was set, the horse was set free. Many a traveller saw the headless rider galloping across fields or roads, the rotten head bobbing near the saddle, and many, not knowing what the hell it was, shot it with bullets or with arrows. This carried on for a few months, and eventually the small horse was caught near a watering hole, and the rotting cargo riddled with bullet holes and Indian arrows was finally removed, and Vidal was buried in an unmarked grave. That should have been the end of the story, but it never is. Many travellers to this day have told tales of El Muerto still haunting the length of the Rio Grande River, crying out strange words or silently going about his way. There are many stories of the Headless Horseman, and whichever you prefer is for you to enjoy this Halloween. But if you happen upon a dark, headless creature riding a horse surrounded by hounds, or perhaps carrying a spine whip, just try not to lose your head. Thank you very much for watching the Mythoscope. Leave a like or a comment below if you really enjoyed it, and have a great Halloween.